Okay, thank you, Edie. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday, October 29th meeting. Halloween's just around the corner. It is 7:35. We're being recorded. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask if anyone had any changes to the minutes, which are coming in a new tailored format that I think is easier to follow. Did anyone read the minutes and have any changes? Okay, it looks like we don't have any changes. I'd like to call the meeting to order and approve those minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Edie. Okay. Hi. Well, it's Lori Cobb. Hi, Lori is on that phone number. Thank you. She just texted me. So anyway, we're waiting for the police. So I'm going to just go through what I think is a pretty cheerful president's report. And then, as always, for everyone here and guests, the police come if they can and when they can, and when they chime in, whatever's happening, we stop and let the police give us a report because they have a lot of business to attend to, and they're working a lot of hours. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started with a few things. Good news from Public Works. Thank you, Robert and Company. The Ferry Point pump station should be, I believe they've actually started on the landscaping. Anybody over there who noticed that? Who lives over there? If not, we got an email from Darcy who said that it's starting pretty quick, so should be done pretty quickly as well. So we've got some action on that. I got a email from Michelle Malam. I also had a discussion of Michelle because I had a personal experience in attending a Halloween party at the haunted house on Buena Vista at Montana, which everyone should check out, and saw 3 active drug deals happening between my house and that literally 5 or 8 minute walk, all along East and West Richmond. One was with a longtime unhoused resident who usually just steals bicycles and seems to be what appears to be trading small bags of stuff for money on the street now. So I'm from Miami. I jumped to conclusions there. And I spoke to Michelle and I didn't call anything in. And she chastised me because she knows that I know better. And so Michelle and RPD is encouraging us to call in everything. Their metric involves reports. So it helps them, even though we know that they can't always respond and we know they're overwhelmed, it does help them if we call these in. First of all, then the city council can't say, oh, we don't have any calls, we don't need police in your area. And secondly, it helps them to plan things. The other thing that's completely obvious that I'm hearing about and seeing on a daily basis, and for those of you who know my husband, he walks the whole downtown area around the school and the triangle twice a day, is the just serious increase in unhoused residents, many of whom are really in rough shape, obviously suffering from mental illness or drugs. So those people can't get our help unless we know they're there. So the plea from RPD and from CORE, the homeless services, is don't say they won't do anything, so I'm not going to call. Call until we get enough staff that they can do something, particularly when you see someone passed out that might need what they call a welfare check. Most of our events, all of our events for the Neighbor to Neighbor grants from the city have formally been completed. We did 10 events. As a matter of fact, the PRNC did 16 events in total this year, more than I believe in in the history of the organization. So we are finished with those. And then LaShonda's team over at Recreation reached out and said, you did good. You can have one more. So for those of you who've been wanting live meetings, I've got good news for you for next month, which is actually January 3rd, December 3rd, the first Wednesday in December, because we combine that Thanksgiving meeting and the Christmas meeting and do it at the first Wednesday in December. We are going to have a Zoom meeting at 6:30. we are going to end it promptly at 7:30. So we're going to cut anything that's depressing, boring, or serious. We're going to update you on what the PRNC did, what the community did, and what the PRNC hopes to do moving forward. Officers of the PRNC will be meeting in a week or two to finalize kind of our game plan. And then we will close our computers on the Zoom meeting at promptly at 7:30, and we will all go to the Hidden City Ballroom for a holiday party with music and dancing, festivities, and food. Um, and I'm going to send out a lot of information about this because I know it's a different thing and it's a little bit confusing. So you'll be very well aware of what's happening. Posters will go up in the next couple of days. Um, and if you do want to sit in the Hidden City Ballroom, maybe someone like Peter who lives kind of far away and it's a long drive, some of you, if you know me or you have a neighbor, you can come to my house and attend the meeting. And then we'll all walk to the corner. Edie will be in the Hidden City Ballroom and her screen will be live. And although it won't be an interactive meeting because we don't have the hybrid meeting capability, you'll be able to watch the meeting on Edie's computer. And then you'll be the first ones in line for food and entertainment. So I'm really excited about that for those who are looking for live meetings. It's the best we can do to do hybrid. We are going to continue to meet on Zoom almost forever because our record keeping and our attendance are so much better. So, but we'll continue to reach out to you in person. Please remember the Halloween parade. If you're new in town, Halloween, Friday morning, starting at just before 10 o'clock, just find your way to the town triangle and watch 450 of the cutest kids in the world do a trick-or-treating parade around the town triangle. If you have a funny hat or a costume, it's optional, but please add to the cheer. Please bear in mind that Washington Elementary is one of the poorest schools in the school district. It is 64% children under the livable quality of life or livable poverty line.
Poverty line.
Thanks. These kids have challenges, and I think waving at them, cheering them on, showing up maybe in a hat or just waving. If you want to get together with some neighbors and buy some inexpensive candy, please buy 450 pieces. Caesar, I've got your candy right now in my living room that I'll get to you. Not so expensive, $40, I think, at Costco to buy 2 giant bags. You don't have to buy chocolate this year. So let's show the kids on Halloween. And then that's all for me right now. And we can go on to Margie Sullivan with our treasurer's report.
Great. So I think it was a fantastic year, really outrageous. And the good part is that we end up with more money at the end of the year than we started with, which is always great. I also want to report that we are hiring an accountant to oversee our books. Now that we are a 501c3, we thought that would make some sense. We're also going to be earmarking some of those funds for some of the projects that we've completed to make sure that if we need anything done, like a touch-up at the tunnel or help with this downtown new trees or whatever, well, we'll have a little bit of that for that. But we'll talk about that more in December. I think that you talked about that. And I also want to say, come on down and wear a costume at 10 o'clock on Halloween. All right.
Thank you, Margie. Next up, Eric, what's going on with membership?
Sure. I've got some more good news, exciting news. We did not report out on this last month, but so in the last 2 months, we have 4 new members, and we've actually hit 200. So 200 active members, which I believe is a milestone for us. So I want to thank Andrew Butt, who's recently become a lifetime member. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the contribution. And I also wanted to say thank you to the rest of the group. We have a lot of folks who continue to pay dues. I know we've had some issues with our billing system. We've had some folks reach out about, is my membership due or not? If there's any questions, please continue to reach out. But we really appreciate you paying your dues and staying on top of that. So that's my report.
Thank you for that good news, Eric. I appreciate that. That's a lot for a neighborhood council to have that many active members. So what we did is there was some confusion in the last meeting. more about bike lanes again. So I sent a list of questions to Deputy City Manager White. I believe, I don't want to speak for you, but that really Public Works is not directly under your umbrella. Is that correct, LaShonda?
That is correct.
Okay, so LaShonda is kind of here for City Manager Curl, who we hope to have in January or February. And as usual, the city upper management, who has 1,000 irons in the fire, calls back those department heads to speak to us because they certainly don't know the details. But we have some concerns and hopefully some misunderstandings in the way the meeting went. LaShonda, how would you like me to proceed? Do you want me to ask you the questions I sent, or is there a presentation, or what's the
Yeah.
best way to move forward?
So thank you, Philip. Thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, Shasta Curl, City Manager, isn't able to be here today, so she asked if I would come. As Philip stated, Public Works does not sit under me, so I'm a Deputy City Manager at the City of Richmond. I am Richmond born, Richmond raised. So the city raised me. I've been at the City of Richmond for almost 20 years. And I am over community services, which is your recreation, library, workforce development, community crisis response, office of neighborhood safety, and then the Richmond Fund for Children and Youth. So that's my area, and also do whatever the city manager asks me to do. So I get involved in a lot of different things, and have the opportunity occasionally to work with Public Works on many things. So I did ask Robert Armijo and Robert Stevens, they are both here. Based on the questions that Philip was able to provide to me, I do not have the answers to your questions, and wanted to have the right appropriate staff available here. So I wanted to, say a few words, and then I would turn it over to Robert to talk about some things, and maybe what he shares will answer some of your questions. But if not, then we can go to your specific questions that have not been answered, if that works. Does that work for you, Philip?
Sure.
Okay. So just a few things. I just want to state that part of the reason why I'm here, or why Shasta was going to be here, was really to listen. So I got the questions from Philip that may have come from some of you, but we do want to hear your concerns. I do want to be clear that we can't go backwards, right? We understand that there may have been some things that the neighborhood council, the community members wish would have went differently. And I'm happy to take that information because we always can learn from our past. But I'm hoping that this conversation, we also can answer questions that you all have, but also look forward and tell you kind of plans for what, as an example, authentic community engagement looks like, or what our plans are to do different, to do better, because we're always, as a city, learning and trying to grow and do better with regards to sharing information about projects and getting feedback from community before we implement. So I wanted to say that. Also, per the city manager, just reminding everyone that I know the city has a lot of plans. Like, we really have a lot of plans out there. And sometimes, and then to acknowledge that sometimes our plans are developed 10, 15 years ago, right? And by the time we get the resources and staffing to be able to implement, people may have forgotten that they even existed, that we did some community engagement when that plan was created and adopted by city council. And staff's responsibility is to implement the plans that city council has adopted. And I think sometimes there may be some disconnect there. I've heard from other neighborhood councils that plan was adopted so long ago, like we needed to maybe do a different job, a better job of coming back to community before we actually implement. So I just want to acknowledge that sometimes that time difference, that gap in time, I think can cause some concerns and some issues. So those are just some things I wanted to state initially. And then there were some questions that I'm going to answer first that are
Okay,
not for Public Works.
I just want to real quick point
Yes.
out that the Office of Neighborhood Safety is a serious overlap in all of these conversations. So it's really good to have you here, because although it may not be infrastructure changes, if you're concerned about our safety, then you're the woman, you're the
Yes,
right
so
woman
I
for the
took
job.
notes
right?
when you were talking about drug deals that you may have seen are unhoused. Our Office of Neighborhood Safety is really focused on gun violence and reducing gun violence. So they're very specific. and there are violence.
We have that
prevention
too.
Department. Yeah, no. So I'm letting you know that there's a specific focus for the Office of Neighborhood Safety around gun violence and
Okay.
populations that are surrounding that. But our new community crisis response program, that council authorized us to start, we're actually in the process of bringing on 8 community intervention specialists that will be able to go out. They'll be dispatched from 911. People call 911. If you call and you call PD and say, hey, there's an issue happening, they may not send a police officer if it's a low acuity crime. If there's somebody on the corner sleeping and they feel like, you know what, let's go have somebody else check it out, that's not PD, they may be able to send our community intervention specialists to go out. So you'll have 8 more city staff. They'll be able to go out, we'll have training, they'll be working and be able to go out as well. And in addition to CORE, addition to A3 in the county. So letting you know a new resource is coming, and we'll be sharing more information.
Great. And will
around
that be a 9 to 5 job, or will they be?
Right now, it's, yes, during the day. We don't have enough for it to be 24/7 at the moment. So it'll be, you know, it may not be 9 to 5 exactly. We may have some different hours, but it won't go into the nighttime yet. So
Thank
we're
you.
excited about that, but you know, definitely taking notes. And I agree with Michelle Milan, please call, right? PD provides information monthly to city council about statistics and what's happening in different neighborhoods. So the more information we can receive, as Philip stated, the better city council and city staff and PD is able to deploy resources effectively. So I just want to co-sign on that. So there were a few questions that were asked that I got responses from. One was about trees. There was a question about the heritage trees in Richmond and not having. So anyway, so what I got from our new public works park superintendent, his name is Jason Lacey. I am reading it because I am not an expert in trees. So I just want to, you know, try to send your questions out and get responses back.
Thank you.
Heritage trees in Richmond have no specific protection or established maintenance standards yet. And that many of our Richmond mature trees are in advanced decline and face potential removal due to age, disease, and lack of consistent care. But the city's adopted plan regarding the urban forest will include the following steps. Number 1, they're conducting a comprehensive tree inventory. So that is something that is major. So if you think about all the trees in Richmond, we have not had a system and a process by which we were able to capture all of the trees and talk about their age, their size, their condition, their health. That is what we're trying to do. And that'll allow us to better determine, you know, how we take care of our trees and how we move forward. They're also developing a maintenance plan to address identified needs. And then they're going to create a management plan that outlines broader strategies to stop tree decline, expand the urban canopy, and establish protection parameters for heritage trees within the municipal code. And that they're currently working to identify funding sources to establish and implement the urban forest management plan. I know they did, as an example, they went after a grant. We hopefully will know about a grant around this project in November. And they anticipate completion of the first step in 2026 with subsequent phases to follow. So they just, that came from Jason in response to one of the questions about trees. So once again, we're trying to develop an inventory plan, and so that we can do a better job at taking care of our urban canopy. So that was one thing around trees. And then there was another question for Richard Diaz around evacuation routes. And outreach, and how has this affected the city's handling of the bike lane? So this is what he shared. He stated that in previous times, and I have a map that he shared previously, that he shared with you all an evacuation map. And it says specifically inquired about evacuation routes, not bike lanes, and that they explained the fact that evacuation routes in Point Richmond are really the main roads that take residents in and out of areas. And in a given situation, such as a vegetation fire or other incident that would prompt residents to be evacuated, the way out will be determined by the location of the hazard. And he said, for this matter, we cannot tell residents that a specific road is designated as an official evacuation route, as it can become a confusing and dangerous issue in a real emergency. And instead, the Point that they made during the meeting was that individuals should all know how to get to the main roads that normally take them out of the area, and he gave some examples. He gave South Gerrard Avenue out north to Canal, Richmond Parkway. So that was an example. And that they also presented a draft map highlighting the main roads that people could take. And that they may want to publicize with tourists or visitors coming in for the day or temporary stays if they feel that that is needed. And that they being fire is working closely with Public Works and our GIS map specialist on the idea to have similar maps, not just for Point Richmond, but for other communities. And they are working really closely with, like I said, Public Works around bike lanes. And so that was from Richard, but I was also able to talk to Chief Osario, and he mentioned that just based on some of the incidents that have happened in the world, right? Staff and community are thinking about issues in a different way now. And so what is happening, not necessarily in the past, but as we move forward, that fire and police are working really closely with Public Works. And I think the two Roberts could speak probably more to this, but that they really are working closely with Public Works to look at plans, whether it's around bike lanes or any other
Right.
Public Works plans, that they're sitting down and talking to one another and looking at plans to make sure that there's ingress and egress, talking about the constraints with that, looking at making sure there's access for public safety vehicles. So they're having those conversations, which I think will matter to communities like Point Richmond, because I know evacuation and parking and all those things are really important to that community. So the Chief Osario wanted me to let you all know that they really are working in close collaboration with Public Works to make sure all of these things are taken into account before something is actually built and implemented.
All right. Thanks,
So those are
LaShonda.
two things that I was able to get
Right.
from staff that weren't able to be here today. in response
LaShonda,
to three
I think I want to clarify what my community communicated with me,
Okay,
because Richard Diaz's answer is generic. We know how to get in and out
okay,
of our community. I think the question was meant to be far more specific. Due to gridlock and lack of previous evacuation routes, saying that Gerrard is the way out, or saying that Gerrard to Gutting is the way out, is perhaps insincere, because our concern is we can't get out anymore
okay,
due to the gridlock. So that's what we're really asking. We're not asking for someone to write a press release about what we know to be true. The challenge is, how is the city responding to these evacuation routes? And I have ridden with Robert Amejo, Robert Stevens, council members of PETA, council member Melvin Willis, council member Bonna, the police traffic specialist Donovan Dacius, and tons of community members. Some of those, when Lisa Johnson was on this board, she joined me for. And we point out, okay, there used to be a way we could escape the trains by making a turn here. That has been taken away from us. There used to be a U-turn at Mechanics Bank. Mechanics Bank sits on a public road that used to be an evacuation route. And, it was really shocking to me to sit in a meeting with Public Works and have one of the officials say, when I said, we spent an hour and a half going over and physically driving the way we escape our community, and had that person say, oh yeah, something about U-turns. So if Public Works attitude is to listen patiently for an hour and a half in a car and then say, oh yeah, something about U-turns, the message isn't getting across. So our goal of reaching out to your staff one-on-one or in small groups so that we can try to make these discussions more productive has become a little bit challenging, because those meetings aren't public. And
those
so
meetings aren't, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
they're not public meetings. They may be
Okay,
held in council chambers, and they may be held at Public Works. Usually it's somewhere in one of the meeting rooms. And so that answer, unfortunately, did not satisfy the brief.
Okay.
Because we know that, the question was, what are you gonna do?
Okay.
And later on, when we talk about this, our concern for, or the misunderstanding we had maybe with Robert last meeting, Armejo, is that people just breeze over the direct concerns and questions. What good is an emergency evacuation route that we can't get to?
Mm-hmm.
What good is a lane that an emergency vehicle can use that an emergency vehicle, and we've asked this question directly 100 times.
Okay.
Everyone who will listen from the mountaintops. What good is the ability for some vehicles to get into a bike lane, for example, if they can't get to the bike lane because of the gridlock? And so it's a big problem, and it involves trains that we don't control, but also the city has a crappy relationship, an unsatisfactory relationship with the railroads, and we don't seem to be making any action in getting there. So I want to make it clear, this is 100 of you in the conversations we have every day. I'm not leading this, I'm just the spokesperson for this.
No,
And
I appreciate that. So this is helpful for me. I don't have all the backstory and
Sure.
background to your
Happy to meet with you and happy to
Yeah.
drive with you.
Yeah, so
I'm in
I'm
the
taking
car.
notes. So part of, once again, what I'm here for is I am taking notes, I'm listening. I can't promise that I'm gonna have answers to every question. I understand there may be some frustration to whatever it is we share tonight, but once again, listening, and then we can take this back and have an internal conversation to really try and get to the heart of people's questions and try and bring back answers. And I know Vice Mayor Zepeda is here. And we've talked to him today. We've had some conversations today about some of these topics. So unfortunately, if things haven't been answered in the past, hopefully we can try and get to the heart of what the actual question is, make sure we fully understand it. We can go back as city staff, have whatever conversations we need to have, and come back at a later time with some more specific answers. So thank you for your
This
patience.
community and this organization is committed to honest, friendly, productive conversations with city staff
I
and
like it.
council. And we don't like to be put in a position where we feel that every comment or concern is a confrontation and people get defensive because it's unproductive and it looks like people are hiding bad stuff, bad policies, past or present. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk.
Well,
'Cause I
no,
always
look,
talk too much.
we're here, we're
Yeah.
open, we want to listen. None of us as staff are trying to be confrontational. We hope you all are not as well. Yeah, with that, those are the answers that I received from staff.
Thanks.
And I took notes based on what you just said, and I will share that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Armijo. I just want to let you all know I will still be on, but if you see my camera go off for a minute, I am walking out of this building, which is really dark at night, to my car with a coworker, and I don't want to walk by myself. So I'm gonna have to switch to my phone and listen as I'm driving, but I'll stay on with my camera on as long as I can. So I just want you all to know that I will stay on till the end. With that,
Thank you for your valuable time, LaShonda.
yeah,
I
you're
appreciate it.
welcome.
It's late at night.
No, you're welcome. So with that, I will turn it over to Robert, if you want to go with your brief slide presentation, answering some questions or sharing what we talked about earlier today. That'll be great.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I think you probably all know who I am, but I'll just introduce myself again just so that you all remember who I am. My name's Robert Armijo. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director and the City Engineer for the City of Richmond. And let me see if I can get the PowerPoint going.
If
You
not,
should
I
have
can
no
share
problem
it.
sharing. It's open.
Yeah. It's unfortunately
You
on
want me
my
to share, Robert?
it's taking over both of my screens, so bear with me a minute. I'm sorry, it's not supposed to do that.
It's Halloween.
Well, I guess I'll just do it. I'll just do this since technology isn't cooperating.
Robert, do you want me to share?
No, I've got it. But,
Okay.
it'll be helpful, and feel free to walk here. So, share screen one. All right. Well,
There you go.
It is up. We see it now.
okay. So, I can't hit play on this unfortunately because it takes over both of my screens. So my apologies for that. So you're gonna just see this in an unusual format, but you can at least get to see the visuals. So tonight, I just want we put together a very brief presentation. We covered all of this information in our meeting last month, and so this is just kind of more of a recap and more directed at the comments that we made last time. So for our first slide, just a quick recap over just to kind of remind everyone that that we haven't engaged. We're happy to meet. We're happy to keep meeting. We've had meetings in the past on this topic, and I'm just showing some of the meetings here. We were very interested in being engaged with Point Richmond leadership. We have been for several years. We've done meetings, the site visits, and project tours, just so that we can understand your concerns directly, where they occur, and so that's just the point of what we're talking about here. We've had many ongoing communications, including a lot of email exchange. We've discussed topics of the safety, the outreach, maintenance, coordination for meetings like this. So I just want to let everybody know that we have been engaged previously. But you might be saying to yourself, but Robert, we're more interested in this new project and looking forward, like LaShonda said. What is your specific plan for meaningful engagement now that you have this new project coming up, right? So we're going to be developing the bike lanes and sidewalks and some of the transit facilities in the downtown Point Richmond area, right? So I did mention this last time, but we do have a community engagement process that we've outlined. This is on our website too. I'll show you at the very end of the presentation the website address. But basically, we have 3 phases to the project specifically for engagement. We're just in the very beginning stages of this project, and so we haven't really started design. We haven't really our first outreach was really last month. But the first phase is going to be introduction, an introduction to the project and listening, gathering community input, seeing what the project can address, and gathering, community concerns. We're going to do a project walk. I don't know if some of you have seen some of our posts and activities that we've been doing for our other projects, but we're doing project walks and inviting the community to come out with project staff, walk the site, so that there's a lot of finger pointing. We can have a physical representation of what's going on in the site. So we plan on doing that sort of thing here. So that's in phase 2, which is outlined here. We have our concept alternatives. So we're going to be presenting multiple design options. We're going to be discussing parking and emergency access implications, and collecting detailed feedback. And we will, of course, incorporate that as best as we can. As LaShonda had mentioned earlier in the meeting, Robert Stevens is here too. So if you kind of want to get into more detail about how CSW can incorporate comments, I'm sure he's going to be happy to answer those questions. Phase 3 is our preliminary design and field testing phase. We're going to be looking at our designs in the real world. We're going to be continuing our safety coordination with police and fire and adjusting our concepts based on what we learn, not only from all the technical aspects, but also based on feedback and input that we receive. So again, you know, like I said last month, and as I say now, and as we've been doing in all of our projects in Richmond for the last 3 years, you know, community feedback does help to shape design before it's finalized. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Just a kind of a reminder of some of the key messages that I shared last month, that our outreach will guide the final design, as I just previously mentioned and showed you in the outreach plan that we shared, that we have 3 phases of design. You might recall that I introduced Jesse and Marcia as co-PMs for the outreach phase. And we've also mentioned the different groups that we'll be reaching out to in the future for this new project. You know, emergency access remains a priority. We, you know, Public Works has been in close communication with our public safety staff all along, meaning police and fire. And just to be real clear, that this particular project that we're proposing is an improvement. I would think it's going to be a great improvement for the community. It's been a long planned improvement, but you know, the further good thing about it is that there's not going to be any removal of evacuation routes. And then finally, like I said, a very brief presentation. I'm just trying to hit all the questions that were asked, and at the end of this, if you want to discuss any more of that with me and LaShonda or Robert Stevens, we're all happy to discuss. But we remain committed to being engaged with the community, to take your input, your feedback, and try our best to incorporate comments in our design. You know, we want to have a safe outcome for all of our travel modes, right? So as we move forward, you know, we want to be progressive in the sense that we're taking in the need of vehicles, pedestrians, transit, and so that we can have safe travel for all people. We are also committed to having an ongoing communication and transparency. I've showed up to many of these meetings. I'm happy to keep showing up and chatting all of these things out. The last thing that I would mention, and I will minimize my screen here on the PowerPoint, but here is the web address for the project. So we don't have a website for every single project in our inventory. So Public Works, I mean, we have literally 100 projects and a giant estimate of all the project costs. But we do have select projects, and this project is definitely and has been on the website for a while. So I'm going to minimize this for you. So this is the website here. So hopefully you all can see that. It's on the City of Richmond webpage. And so here's what it looks like. It's under, so I'll just kind of give you a quick navigation here. So you go to Public Works. I've done this enough that you'd think I'd be faster. You go to Engineering and Capital Improvement Projects. There's this plus sign right here under Capital Improvement Program. You click on that and you go to Select Projects, and then you scroll down to this number right here, 23060, is the CIP number. So that's the way our finance department captures the finances for that. So that's the CIP number. It's the downtown Point Richmond bicycle connectivity is what we're calling it. Maybe it could be a better name, but that's the name we have.
Robert, sorry, are you able to actually pull up this from that website? This is the actual plan that we understand you intend to move forward with?
I
It's at the bottom of the
Yeah,
page.
there it is.
It's at, yeah, there.
Can you leave that up while we ask some
Sure.
questions?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to kick out a couple of questions that are, thank you for that presentation. A couple of the questions that were specifically asked. We are looking at also, there were two sets of questions about the outreach on this ongoing thing, which continuously is spoken about as if it is moving forward. Very recently, Hillel talked about how many parking spaces and how they were going to be reconfigured in a project that supposedly hasn't been finalized. So it is ultimately up to your staff and your department to make us feel that your comments are sincere and that we're going to have an opportunity to make a change if we point out things that are dangerous. So I'm going to pop out a couple of these. This is really some of these really were meant for LaShonda and can be better answered by Shasa when we see her at the beginning of the year. The city manager has stated that the bike lanes are moving forward based on previous city council instruction. The question was that the outreach was insufficient to begin with, and then the project changed dramatically. So we are working with council members of PETA to see if we can change that instruction or halt that instruction, because in a meeting that I attended with council members of PETA, TRAC, and Lisa Johnson was there, Daniel Chavarria said, we just need to put something up and fix it later. So the question is that the city's policy? That we're just going to put something up and fix it later, because that hasn't worked so far.
Yeah, that's not a
for
city
us.
policy.
Okay.
I wasn't present.
Of course.
I'm not Shasa, I'm not Daniel, I wasn't present. I think if Daniel was here, he would agree that that is not a city policy. That is not direction city council has given us in terms of build it
Well,
and
he
then we'll
needs to,
fix it.
perhaps he should be a little bit more careful.
Well, so once
because
again, I can't, I wasn't
We
there,
had
so I can't.
legitimate concerns. We
I
had legitimate-
understand. So I just want to say that is not a city policy. It is true, though, that city staff, our responsibility is to implement what direction city council has given us.
Mhm.
And if there is a change, so that's why I was referencing that I don't know. I have not studied the bike and pedestrian master plan. If this plan came out of it that gave some guidelines, guardrails, instructions around implementing bike lanes in the city, which I know it has. I don't have all the details to it, but if there is a shift to whatever, and it wouldn't be this council, right? A previous council years ago would have adopted this plan. If there is a desired shift or change to the plan, something like that would need to come back to city council. So the city manager only has authority to make changes or to spend money up to $10,000. So
Right, I
changes,
understand.
which, so the city manager, city staff don't have the ability based on just policy, but also based on the amount of funding it would take to maybe make a change, as an example that this neighborhood council would want to see in a plan. So something like that would have to go to city council. So I'm happy that Vice Mayor Zepeda is on the line. I think there has been conversation about if there is a substantial change and a shift from something council has adopted, it needs to go back to city council for some policy direction so city staff can make a different change.
Mhm. Thank you. Robert Armejo, looking at this diagram where they have taken the parallel parking or the angle parking out from in front of the bank, does everybody see where that is at the top right of your screen, and the plunge is across the street on the very left? There's a train and we need to get out. How do we make that U-turn? We can't barely make it now. How do we make that U-turn?
So, here's a couple points that I can make. First of all, we're just starting the design process. So there's, I believe
Sure.
this exhibit
I don't
came.
understand because I saw this 3 years ago. So can you
Yeah.
clarify how we're just starting with something that your staff has been saying is moving forward?
Can I make a suggestion, Robert Armio and Philip, please? This is
Yeah.
Robert Sleeves. Yeah, so this is a sketch. This is an idea, right? This is not set in stone. So I
Okay.
think, as Robert Armio was saying, is that this first phase of this project is really to sit down with all of the community members, stakeholders, and everybody, and talk about like what works and what doesn't work. What can we do here? We know that from a high level council, the council in the bike and pedestrian action plan, it's established some guidelines to do some features in these locations. But what's shown here might not be the best way of doing it. So I
Thank you,
think
Robert.
that this whole process we're going to go through is going to be to discuss and talk about what would work here.
Okay, and thank you, Robert. I also want to reach out to my community. I'm doing a lot of talking, and if the attendees at this meeting are uncomfortable with that, let me know. But I put together the questions you asked, but I did not have a chance to send those out to the community, so you don't know what I did. So I'm trying to kind of move that along. Edie, you have a question.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad that you came to me now and not later, because this is, I'm just thinking this over, and from what I've heard is that the city council has put a mandate forth and only the city council can change it. We now have a plan on paper that has been here for quite some time, with promises that changes will be made or that we will be listened to. And I apologize for being skeptical or at least a little suspicious, but let me ask this question, or at least, yeah, let me ask this question. You don't have to make any changes based on what we say, because you have this plan in place. So I've heard from sources within the city that this is the plan. And I know that that's sort of true, but it's also sort of not true. Is it the case that if it is deemed that our input is not effective or not pertinent or whatever, that you could absolutely choose to build this exactly as we're seeing it right now, because this is mandated by the city?
So what I was trying to explain earlier is that let me, it's kind of like, how does a bill become a law? So let me explain, how does a project get built? So you start in the planning phase. So you have some idea, some concept of what you're trying to accomplish. And you go out and you hire a consultant, or staff sometimes does it, and you create a plan. In this case, when I'm talking about a plan, it's not a design. It's not something you can hand to a consultant, to a contractor or a builder and say, hey, go build this. You can't do that with the plan. A plan is something that's more developed than a concept, but not as developed as final construction plans. So that's precisely what the city did. They developed the name of the plan is the Ferry to Bridge to Greenway Plan, and it's an active transportation project plan, and it basically develops some connectivity for bikeways, basically from the ferry all the way to the bridge, and also interconnects the Greenway, which is also another major bike route for the city. So that's the very big picture part of that. There was a
Right.
lot of policies encapsulated in the plan, including how to fund it, some development impact fees that would be collected to help support the plan, stuff like that, as well as attached to the plan were what you call 35% design drawings, right? So 35% drawings takes the plan, this more refined concept, and makes it into like the earliest stage of a design. So that's what was developed as part of the Ferry to Greenway to Bridge project, was a 35% set of drawings. Now, what we're talking about here is we're going to go from 35% to 100%. 100% being the plans that we actually hand to a contractor and say, hey, build this. And what we're committing to you now is, and what I mentioned last month, is that we're going to be going through a community input cycle with all of you to, canvas, get comments. I mean, like comments about, how do you turn around? Those are all great, right? So to be real honest, can we take every single comment? Some people might want something that, isn't really consensus, right? Maybe somebody wants gold-plated traffic signals, right? Just to be silly, right? Keeping with the holiday season. But, we'll be nice about it. Okay, yeah, we hear you want the gold-plated traffic signals. We can't really do that. It's not in the budget. But we'll listen. But there's practical concerns, that Philip's bringing up, right? That have to do with traffic circulation, and completely valid. And there might be a design solution for that. And Robert and his team, Robert Stevens, to make it completely confusing, having Robert Armio, Robert Stevens. Robert's team and Robert are very talented design engineers, and they've been embedded in the community for a long time. And we're going to take the comments very seriously, do our best to incorporate them, right? Like, just with the caveat that we can't do everything, but we're going to try.
Right.
And you'll be along for the ride to know why.
And that's good to know, because I'm not the only neighbor who has seen this. There haven't been very many neighbors that have actually seen these drawings like put out in front of them, but the ones that have are very concerned that this is the final plan, and that any changes or any outreach to us is kind of performative just to get to this plan. So there is a certain level of cynicism within the neighborhood, especially when we saw this. And so I just kind of wanted to have my fears abated, that it isn't going to be performative, that there will be changes to this plan.
Right. And
Right.
Edie, I think that one of the things that you're saying, which is totally accurate, but that's not what I'm hearing from the community. What I'm hearing from the community, and I'm going to use layman's term, they lied to us about cutting. The project changed completely. Patrick Phelan said they were surprised by the trains. Public records will show that there were 100 warnings about the trains. The project changed completely. There was never any meaningful outreach. And I'd like to point out very respectfully that how hard did you, as the Deputy Public Works Director, need to dig into this website to teach this community how we need to find this plan? If you had dug it under and put it under the plunge, it wouldn't be harder to find. How is the average taxpayer going to know that they're supposed to go to the city website and hit on Public Works and do the project number? Okay, so that's part of the thing. But in the meanwhile, everyone's saying this outreach is here. I'm answering Lindsay's question in the comments. Everybody wants bike lanes, Lindsay. Everybody wants them, and most of us believe they can be safely made without interfering, without causing gridlock and without interfering with our safe ability to exit. Robert, I think and then I'm going to go to all these hands that are up. Robert, I'm really going to cut to a little bit of the chase about what was so disturbing to so many of us that after the last meeting, I was on the phone till midnight with my neighbors. Because you said, oh, well, we're going to make sure to block off that lane because when there's gridlock, the cars try to drive in the bike lane, which we can all agree is a bad idea. So we're going to put up, I guess you're putting up pylons there that supposedly the fire department can just drive over, right? What the community was concerned about is that you completely refuse to address the fact that we shouldn't have this gridlock and that the redesign of these lanes, or these lanes as they were originally designed, would have allowed for us to make a gosh darn U-turn when we were stuck by a train. And the situation around Washington Elementary is completely unacceptable in a situation where there's gridlock. Kate, you have your hand up?
Philip, I'm just sorry, real quick, because I think I'm gonna have to shift in a moment, but what I feel like I'm hearing from both Robert Stevens and Robert Armijo is this is something like we have plans, and plans provide guidelines and guardrails, as I stated. We have multiple plans that give staff some sort of direction about what they want to see. We know bike lanes have been requested, or bike lanes are included in those plans. What I'm hearing both Roberts say is that this plan that you all see here or have been seeing for years is not final. And I feel like what we can't go back. Patrick Phelan does not work here. We can't go back to what happened in Cutting. We are learning. We are trying to do better. So what I'm hearing, and Roberts, please tell me if I'm wrong, the plan that is here is not final. So people have seen it for the past 3 years. It is something that that staff have said, here's an idea of what something could look like. To me, plans sometimes are a starting point, a jumping off point for people to have a conversation and say, okay, if you all are thinking about this, I don't think this will work because of A, B, and C. And that is why we're here. So I just don't want us I understand the frustration, maybe the lack of trust from previous projects. We are really trying to do better and do different. And so Robert, we are accepting feedback, correct?
Oh, yeah, I think this
Absolutely.
this gets to the heart of the matter, right? I think on day one, right? This is a sketch. It shows something, but on day one, it's a listening exercise. What do we need to do? What do we need to do to the bike lanes that are there today? And what do we need to do throughout this whole area to make things better? And I would look at it as an opportunity, like at the railroad track crossing that's shown on this map. I mean, there's things we could do there. There's all kinds of things we can do to make this whole area better for everyone. And I think that's what the whole point of this. The whole point of this first phase is a listening exercise.
Thanks, Robert. And we've driven together, and I have enormous respect, and we're very happy that you're on the job because you are literally our neighbor, and we know you and trust you. But it hasn't done any good so far on Cutting. Kate, I want to finally get to your hand. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So as a biker, I object to this plan. And as a driver in Point Richmond, I object to this plan. My feedback is you've taken away valuable parking space. The diagonal ones, if I'm correctly calling the currently now diagonal parking for, I think they're called parallel parking. And the numbers are much less. And placed instead of that, in the inside of that, 2 bike lanes. Existing now, most bikers come down, if you like, from the bridge in that direction towards Point Richmond, on Richmond, cross over the tracks, and then come down in front of the swimming pool. My suggestion is that we keep the existing parking and put that bike lane, if you like, in front of, between the pool and the parking. Diagonal parking along the pool, and then ask the bikers to go down East Richmond to Wine Street, where they can make a left and then join the bike path that will go ad infinitum towards the city.
Kate, that would be ridiculous because it would allow us to do the U-turn to escape the trains because it would open up that U-turn that they took away, and that would be safe, Kate. But thanks, I'm being facetious. That was super sarcasm.
I got it.
I agree with you. And I will also remind you that originally, when they took our evacuation routes away, when they put the bank down, which by any metric is successful, the bike lanes were supposed to run behind the mechanics bank.
Oh, there you go. There's another plan. Okay.
And which would mean today that we would have to move the bank forward on what is public property on a public street.
No,
Peter,
excuse me for saying
Oh.
there is a path back in the back of the bank, which is just a footpath. It's cemented. It could be, I don't know the dimensions required for a dual lane bike lane, but it's possible.
it's not wide enough now, but it could be.
Yeah.
But those of us who've been here forever remember when we were concerned about that, what this was supposed to be 20 years ago. So, Peter, you've been part of this traffic discussion as president of PRNC and member for decades, almost a decade, I should say.
Yeah, I was really curious as to what the impetus of these rather unique bike lanes that require removing parking spaces. Where did that idea come from? Who is this something that's implemented in other cities? Or do you?
Yeah, so this is what's known as a cycle track, a class 4 cycle track. You see them pretty much all throughout the East Bay. There's some new ones that are going in right in front of the Del Norte BART station. You know, the idea is to separate cyclists from vehicle traffic. And I think this discussion that we just heard, I think, you know, there's a ton of different options here. And, you know, all of these, there's trade-offs, right? There's trade-offs for everything in life. And I think this is an awesome conversation to have. And this is part of the listening exercise.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thanks. Fran?
Hello. I think just for sorry, I think just for maybe delineating that this is a 35% design. I think it's just maybe just for the consultant at hand, probably important just if there's a way to add onto the website, hey, this is not a final design, just to in any way assuage concerns that this is something permanent. Because I understand, where neighbors are coming from. I think that the separated bike lanes and the parallel parking is probably a for option to prevent action between drivers. I hear the concerns about U-turns, and I'm sure that there is a solution that, or at least something that can make everything work together. But I think just above all else, making sure that highlighting and stressing to the community that, any way possible, hey, this is not a finalized plan. We're still working the nooks and crannies. I think above all is something that it seems like everyone can agree that should be emphasized as this community outreach process continues. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Fran. Eric.
Yeah, hi, Robert. Thank you, Robert and Robert. Thank you for the presentation. I think, when we're talking about so if this is, I think one of the concerns that I hear amongst my neighbors and in the discussion about this topic, I think in what you presented tonight about doing the design alternatives, although this is a very extreme example, do you view these future potential design alternatives as like a complete rework of this? Or if we're kind of married to this as a baseline, I think that's where, you're hearing this is fraught with concern. And so I think if the city is willing to maybe clear the slate here and really do some complete design alternatives where you're, I don't know, put the bike lanes on the other side of the road, that's very extreme. I think the community would have a lot of comfort if, the city would be willing to look through a kind of a clear lens on how they approach this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. I think we need to think about it from, the very beginning. How do we best accommodate all of these uses that are here?
Robert, may I jump in just for a moment? This is Jessie Mirren. I'm a member of Robert's team at CSW, and I lead our outreach efforts. And I really appreciate all the comments that we're hearing back this evening. And this is exactly the kind of conversation that needs to begin a process like this. When we talked earlier about plans, Robert Armijo talked about plans and what that really means. That's the seed of an idea. And the conversation that we're having here is about how do you take the seed of that idea and turn it into reality. So even though there are 35% plans, those were developed as part of that process that happened in the past. And you all are bringing in new information. You're bringing in your lived experience of walking and biking and driving through the city all of the time. And so this is the conversation that feeds into what happens next as the project moves forward. I hope that's somewhat helpful. I just want to reiterate that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think that's an important explanation. I think one of the given you are at 35%, I think one of the concerns is, instead of like 10 to 15 parking stalls, we'll see, 5, right? So I guess what I was proposing is, again, taking kind of a new approach on this, and based on this feedback you're hearing, and hopefully there's future sessions to give feedback. It would be interesting to see what you work up and maybe some new approaches on how to accomplish your goal.
Thanks, Robert. And I'd like to talk about the semantics of this conversation. That is very frustrating for any of us who are serious and take this. And in the comments, I'm talking to people who I love, who are my friends and neighbors. So I'm not here to have an argument. There's no one who gives a darn if we end up with 3 fewer parking spaces, except some of the businesses and the people who live here who don't have parking. But 3 is not going to change our world. When the city is suggesting that we do parallel parking in a crosswalk where Miss Maxine, our 85-year-old crossing guard, is crossing 450 underprivileged children, many of whom don't have parents who really can speak up for their safety, or that we're going to be parallel parking in front of the plunge, that's the concern. And so to say, oh, you hate, I have heard it so many times, you hate bicycles and you wish they were dead. You don't care if they get hit. None of that is true. We know we'll give up some parking spaces and we'll gain some valuable things, including the fact that when there are bike lanes, traffic slows down. So this traffic slimming, I think they call it, this lane slimming, is beneficial to the community. But I just want to, let's not do this red herring where we say, if you don't accept exactly what happened on Cutting Boulevard, then you are against bike lanes and you're against progress. And I've been even asked if I work for Chevron because I'm only for cars. I have handicapped people in my family who need direct access to those spaces that load on a sidewalk. The idea that they are going to have to step into traffic because there is no direct handicap parking on this plan. And we hear you that this plan has changed, but the fact is, obviously, and we trust you, Robert, and I trust Jessie with my children, okay? Adore her and think she's a sincere person. But the problem is we are so afraid that you're going to do your job with 100% integrity, and then they are going to throw it in the trash can the way they've done in the past. Lisa? You're muted.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you Robert and staff for coming and presenting tonight. I've listened to everybody's feedback. This is going back almost 3 years, I think, Philip, right? When we had the PRNC meeting at the end of 2022, and a lot of this was dredged up.
Right.
And I think what you're hearing from the community is there has been a lot of commitment of people listening to each other. But then what seems to happen is that there are certain outcomes that people think is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. And so that is what's leading to a lack of trust in large part.
Give us an example.
and I take this, you know, we've had these community meetings, we've had smaller meetings, and the cutting Boulevard has just been the disastrous project that the community is, you know, that unfortunately, that's the litmus test, right? That's what the community is now comparing everything to, how the community was left out. The businesses were left out. And it's the same thing across the city. Barrett Avenue, right? I know you guys are doing different now. I've seen the community walks that you guys are now doing on Barrett and bringing the community in and listening, but it's example after example. And you guys have inherited, I know, Robert Armijo, I know you, when you came on in the end of 2022, and I know you inherited a lot of this. So when the community sees a plan like this, that, was kind of thrown at us initially off the cuff and said, oh no, that plan's already, that 30% engineered drawing has already changed. It's no longer going to be, you know, drive-in parking, but parallel parking. And what the community is trying to express, some of them, is that we were left with the impression that some of the issues on Cutting Boulevard could be addressed. We understand it was a 10-year build project to get the grant money, but there were some things that Robert Stevens had worked out with Philip on things that could potentially be addressed. That was a couple years ago, before I left, and none of it has happened. And so then what that does is it just leads people to believe it was disingenuous or a lack of trust. And so I think that's what we're fighting against and trying to figure out. That's what I am hearing from the community in these comments tonight. And I know you guys have a bazillion projects on your plate, and I don't know what the best way would be to communicate when we have meetings. We come out with what we think are going to be action items, and then it just kind of goes dark. And so without that follow-up, then people get frustrated. They're like, what's the point of the meeting? So Philip, is that kind of?
Yeah, Lisa, and I think that we're all feeling that tension. And Robert, thank you for keeping this screen up to give people an idea of why we're so concerned. If you would kindly pull it down now. So I want to look at the group because we're running quite behind, and that's okay if it's okay with the group, because this is important. And, you know, give me a little raise of hand if you feel like we need to stop this meeting. Edie, need to stop, or we're okay? Okay. Robert Stevens.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to one comment that, remember that plan that was on the screen, that was a design. That design, currently, we are at 0%. There is no design, right?
Okay.
That's the whole purpose of this exercise, I think, is to look at the downtown. And I think, as Lisa mentioned, it's looking at these other areas so we have a consistent treatment through the corridor. And I think that's all part of the overall outreach process.
Thank you. What I'd like to do real quick is I want to punch through some of the questions because I feel like I committed to ask these questions when y'all emailed them to me. So I'm going to just run through them real quick and see, because maybe there's misinformation. And so maybe we can just say yes or no. I'm not going to go through the history of the bad outreach because any of us who knows how to search for public records knows that the city council, the city staff misrepresented this to the city council, which is one of the reasons why we need to see if we can put the brakes on this. And we can pick this up again at another meeting. Was there any outreach made to the school district regarding its understanding of the area surrounding Washington Elementary and the school districts? My understanding from the previous principal, we have a new principal started this year, was that the the evacuation plans for Washington Elementary by the school district, they don't know that things have changed. And we discussed this in a meeting a couple of years ago when we were at COVID, and then we came back from COVID, and all of a sudden the school didn't know how to load and offload the kids because they didn't know what it used to be like. Robert, do you know if there's anything about the school district or Mayhew or Stevens, either of you?
So I don't believe that this particular phase or this part of the project is in front of the school.
I think we're backtracking to cutting right now at Wine Street.
Oh, okay. So what you want to know if there was historical? I wasn't here when the project was initiated, so I don't have any institutional knowledge personally. So I'm not sure what the question is. Are you asking for how
Well,
the
we want to
school is
know if the
involved in
school
the past?
evacuation plans includes this. Yeah,
Yeah,
I understand,
so
LaShonda, respectfully, you're putting in the comments, they weren't here, but you were, and Lena Velasco was, and the city manager was. Robert Ramondes was still on staff physically in the office as a contractor during the time when these conversations came up. So I don't like to be nasty, but we are very, very distressed by hearing upper city management say, it's certainly not Robert's fault, or Robert, he wasn't here, nor can we expect him to know everything. But when we've been asking these questions for 3 years, and at the time we started asking these questions, the people who were involved in these decisions were still on, you can understand why we don't feel
I
heard.
completely respect that people are frustrated. And that is part of my comment. My other part of my comment is that we are really here to tell the community, and I feel like that is what we have consistently stated, that we are trying to improve our community engagement, our community outreach,
I
and
understand.
feedback loops. So it's a two-part. So I want to make sure we can't go backwards. I understand there's some frustration about what happened on cutting, but it's built. And so we really are trying to let you all know, as Robert Stevens said, what's in front of you to be built. We're at 0. You may have seen
Right.
the whole plan. So I just am bringing
Right.
it, I don't want us to.
Right, but I'm
I just-
bringing us back to the changes on cutting. I hate to cut you off because you're our guest, but the questions we have that we sent forward were specific about changes that can be made. So let me clarify to this community something I think even Lisa Johnson, who is the wonkiest researcher I've ever met in my life. We sat in meetings and left those meetings with our jaws dragging on the floor when we were randomly told that there's a 10-year proof of concept, meaning that whatever they do build, they can't change.
Okay, so I can speak to this if I think I'm understanding your question. So we did do a drive-through with you and some other leadership on, because remember, our dialogue had been, you were bringing up all these concerns, and I had asked, hey, Philip and others, give me a list of what you want changed, and it culminated in this site visit, right? And so very specific things were identified, like the U-turn at Wine Street, some of the bike lanes where people are driving their vehicles into the bike lanes. And we did design some countermeasures. It's like the Ferry Point pump station. We're getting to it. Some of the wheels of government are slow to turn. I wish as much as you did that things happened fast, could happen faster, but they just take time. So the countermeasures, if that's what you're asking about, are in the works.
Okay, and Robert Stevens did a phenomenal job of helping us to take layman's terms and concerns and put them into technical terms. There is not one thing that Robert Stevens saw on the same ride that I took you and everybody else on that he didn't have a solution for. We would love to see the simplest things, the ones, and for those of you who think that we're anti-bike lane, I would say that 30 or 40 or maybe 50% of the suggestions, Robert Stevens, correct me if I'm wrong, that I made were by sitting for so many hours and observing how they were being used and saying the bicyclists aren't safe or they're not using the lanes. So either they're not clearly marked or they're not effective. So at the beginning, although people are adjusting to them, over 75% of the people on 3 weekends that I sat for at least 4 hours at Roma Cafe, at least 75% of the bike lane users were using those lanes incorrectly. They were in the wrong lane or they weren't using them. Lisa,
Yeah.
you were there.
Thanks, Robert, for clarifying that. And I know you guys have a zillion projects that you don't have dedicated staff for yet. I know that. I listen to every council meeting. I think you know that. And I think in my earlier comment, one thing I was trying or hoped to convey was that I think if the community could get a sense, and even if it's an estimated timeline of when those changes that Robert Stevens, I think, was proposing for cutting Boulevard to address some of the issues. And that even extended to the businesses, between Hoffman and Canal, where there's been some accidents in the bike lane. When that could actually be implemented, because I think when there's just this, and I get it, you guys are swamped and you have a ton of projects. And so it's just kind of getting a sense of the timeline and seeing, when that would be dedicated and when those changes might implement. It would also help the community, like I said, regain some trust in that process. So then when the designs start coming to the community for the newer project right there in the downtown, it's the connection of the two and how that goes that's going to help, I think, to continue to build bridges here because they were fractured.
So I appreciate those comments. The one thing I can point out, because I'm bringing up Ferry Point on purpose, right? It was, we did hear the comments, there's many comments, the what do you call the special board, that the educational board was missing, and the road wasn't quite lined up just perfectly. The bike lane that was on the side was in bad shape, and that needed to be fixed. And we needed landscaping at the Ferry Point pump station. The walls were too short. I mean, I looked at them. I agreed. I saw that and I was like, wow, I wasn't there when the design happened, but I inherited the design. I was building the design, but when I saw it come together, I was like, you're right. So, I did work with the community. I put all the staff on it. It took longer than I wanted, but we delivered. So I hope I'm building up a history of showing that, when I say I'm working on it, I'm working on it. And it's not just me. I don't want it to be about me. We have a wonderful staff. We've been very fortunate to be able to acquire staff. And they're all working very hard. We also, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for the community, have a very large backlog of projects that we inherited. For a mid-sized city, Richmond has a gigantic CIP program. 100 CIPs with a total project value of over $400 million. And to the council's credit, they have funded, I think, 140 million of those projects, and the cost that I'm quoting doesn't really include sunk costs. But I mean, the council is really committed to funding and delivering all these projects. So we're, and I agree with LaShonda. At the city, we're on a path for continuous improvement. We want to have a better engagement process. That's why I'm here today. We've engaged specialist consultants on other projects and brought those in so that the community can be heard. So yes, we're working on it. We will. We did design the countermeasures. It just takes some time. That I can only apologize and beg for your patience on how long things take. We are a government agency. Unfortunately, we do have to go through certain processes. We're not And you wouldn't want that either. You wouldn't want us to just go out and do things and spend money. You would want to make sure that we're spending money the right way.
And I-
Robert, right, and Robert, we do see, and I hope you know that behind your back and sometimes to your face, I frequently give you credit for even minor things. Sidewalks that haven't been repaired in 30 years that were completely broken that got fixed. Cesar Zepeda, who finally got the tunnel lighting through after 20 years. Now, it's going to take a while, and we know, but we know it's rolling. And thank you, Cesar, for getting $500,000 to fix that really dangerous tunnel situation. That originally, when they first were going to do it, if I recall correctly, was 40,000, but inflation. Let me ask you one more question, and then any more and then I'll let everybody from the city go so we can just finish up our meeting because this has been so long, but I think it's important. Bruce Bayard told me, or told us in one of those meetings that they intended, and this is, I may have the wrong term. This is what I looked up on the internet. They intend to put concrete burns, and this is something that Jesse West commented on at a recent meeting about in a case of emergency, we would all, and this is probably true, we're all going to drive out in the bike lanes if we can enter them. You have placed concrete burns for about 2 city blocks from in front of the Burger King, and that's a right-hand turn onto Hoffman. And I understand why, because people were confused. And they were using that wide bike lane, which was originally intended to be on the other side of the road. So let's all remember when we talk about this, it was never supposed to be there. And this is why we're having challenges. The original plan was great. And then Patrick, who's no longer with us, ignored the trains. That's the bottom line. But is it true that, so those burns look like curbs, except they're 3 times the size of a curb, so that it is impossible to ride to drive your car into that lane. Is it so that they intend to take out those pylons, the poles, and the armadillos, the bumps, and replace them with concrete burns, or whatever those things are called? You'll know, or Robert Stevens certainly knows what those things are called.
But was that one of the countermeasures, Robert Stevens?
So what Philip is alluding to is to migrate the existing bollards into a concrete median that separates the cyclists there. So, right, that's a much higher level facility, right? In order to do something like that and even consider something like and discuss something like that, we'd have to coordinate with fire to make sure that fire has ingress and egress and that, it could actually function. So I don't think that just swapping something out is a really easy solution. It requires thought and consideration and discussion with all of the stakeholders that might be involved with it.
Right. It wasn't actually it wasn't interpreted as being a solution to a problem. The solution is to protect the bike lane, which is sensible. The horror came because the city continues to say it's an emergency evacuation lane, and in a case of emergency, everyone's going to drive in the lanes, and the fire department's going to get there, and even a police car can't go over them. So that's really what it was not a positive. And unfortunately and surprisingly, none of the track members who tend to show up every time we discuss bike lanes, unfortunately, they don't seem to be here. So we can't really ask them to comment on those meetings that were held in private, without public. So hopefully we'll see from track and clarify, particularly since the outreach was originally done by Bruce Bayhardt's company, and he sits on the planning commission and on track. So he's really in a position to tell us if there are still questions about how that outreach went amok. There's a lot more questions, but I think we've got the gist of it. LaShonda is saying we can trust the city. We're crossing our fingers that we are. I've never heard anyone that has any doubt about CSW or any member of its staff having competence to conduct this. So we know you know what to say and do. And personally, I've learned that you know how to solve problems. So that's great. Gary, we'll finish up with your question and then we'll crank through the rest of this meeting and let the city staff go home because they've been gracious with their time.
Phil, thank you. I appreciate this. A comment at the end, Robert, I'd like to make is this is not about this, different topic, and it's all about Nickel Park and some of the tennis programs. I just want to pass along that Tawfiq Halaby has had excellent customer service, and just want to let you know he's been very responsive to what we've needed up there, and want to pass that along to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
he's a
will
great
pass that along.
communicator. And we love Hillel, although there have been some statements that got our hair up a little, which we discussed earlier. But Hillel is really a pleasure to work with, and he sincerely listens, which is nice. Are there any last minute questions before we let the traffic people go? And
Just one
and go
last
on?
quick question. When can we start expecting as a community to start seeing these outreach meetings start to happen?
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion. So, you know, Robert presented a very high level. Oh, Jesse, are you going to take this one?
I am, but I'd love to hear what you were going to say.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that I think what would be helpful is that Robert had outlined a very high level approach. And I know Jesse and Marcia have a much more detailed thought about actually how to engage not only the Point Richmond community, but you know, all the stakeholders, the schools and the rest of the city of Richmond as well. I think would be helpful if we can come back to this session and present that and get feedback on that. I think that would be super helpful, right, Jesse?
Absolutely, that would be super helpful. So, you know, given the concerns that have been expressed here this evening, and in other, you know, forums, we understand that it's not just important to do the outreach, but it's going to be important to start out with the outreach plan. So identifying all of the times in the project when when meetings are going to happen, how communication is going to flow back and forth, and how your input is going to be incorporated into each stage of the development of that end product. So we'd like to start with the roadmap first, and then start having the meeting so everybody knows where we're going. One of the key things about outreach is that we want to make sure that we're having those meetings and those conversations when people are able to participate. And November and December are not great times to do that. It's the holiday season, and then we start a new year. So I anticipate that it may be a little bit of time. I know you guys are going to have a holiday party at the December meeting. And so I anticipate in the new year is when we would come back to you with that roadmap.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, because I wasn't looking necessarily for specific dates or even a month. I would have been happy with like a quarter or even what part of 2026. Or if it was going to be 2027, what part of 2027, you know? So the fact that you haven't created a roadmap makes sense that you wouldn't have any specific times. But I'm getting the feeling that it sounds like you're going to be doing it earlier in the year rather than later in the year.
Earlier in the year anticipated rather than later.
Right.
Thank
And
All
Charmaine
things allowing.
Charmaine is going to comment a little bit later about what's happening with the similarly important outreach that concerning the Keller Beach sewer project. And for what it's worth, this is what I suggest and what I have instituted as president. And I'm happy to take anyone's suggestion. We start small. We start with an outreach plan. Then small groups, specialized groups meet that's open to the public. But instead of just having one of the meetings like this one where everything just goes on for hours, we're trying to funnel this in a logical way. And I'm not allowed to really speak to Jesse or Robert about this until a contract is signed. But I have shared other things like Keller Beach where everything's going to be transparent and it's going to make sense. So, you know, we start small and then we build the meetings up so that they're really productive. So it's not just like that first Keller Beach meeting where poor Robert and the Public Works probably were afraid for their lives, so because we didn't build up. So we just want to build a logical outline. And as soon as I have permission from the city or from the council member or Robert, or it'll be Jesse Marin who reaches out and says, we've got our contract signed and we're allowed to start talking about this, we will get to the community and say, how do you want us to help? And then ultimately, the PRNC will not be running this. Jesse's company will, that's their job. But we will be facilitating it and advertising it in any way that we can, as we have with Keller Beach, which Charmaine will describe in a few minutes. I'd like to let everybody go from the city, those of you who started early today and probably worked through dinner. I'm grateful, LaShonda, you're a busy woman, and I know it's not really your whole umbrella. We're grateful for you. Robert, I know that sometimes there's a lot of pressure, but I think we're learning to communicate as a community with you and vice versa. Robert Stevens, you've got the technical answers, and for sure we know that Jesse will do honest and heartfelt outreach. So thank you all, and we'll see you at the next one. Happy holidays. Our Christmas festivities will be at the Hidden City Ballroom at 7:30 on December 3rd. I'll send you an invitation. Drop by if you just can't get enough of us.
I just want to say thank you for the invitation. I just want people to know I've been taking notes, listening, as both Robert stated, this and Jesse, this was an opportunity to give feedback. I hope you all feel a little better after this meeting about where we are, where we're not with regards to the bike lanes in downtown, and with regards to cutting. I also want to state that I think it's really important for us not to just have community engagement, but also have a feedback loop so that people understand what was discussed. And so I think we want to do a better job as a city of updating the website, so people understand what we're doing with the information that we've gathered. So I just want to thank people. We do have a new team. I'm not trying to, we do have a new team, a newer city manager, even though as staff we've been here. But we're trying to, as Shasta would always say, the city manager, be on a path of continuous improvement. And so that's why we select great partners like CSW, ST2. So thank you to Robert and Jesse. And thank you all. If you have additional questions or comments or concerns, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good night.
Roberts. Thank you, Jesse. Okay. We'll try to get back on target. We'll all do our community briefs pretty quickly. Maskers, anybody? Okay. Going once, going twice. Did Cordell give you any communications, Peter? He usually gives you a feedback on what the RNCC did.
Yes, he did. Just hold on a moment and I'll call it up here. All right, here it is. The recap of this month's RNCC report from Cordell. 9 people on Zoom, 7 on the dais, 7 in the audience. Cheryl Cotton provided an overview of what her plans are to improve the school district. City staff provided their reports as usual. No old business. And under new business, he suggested they invite a rep from Caltrans to present on the plans to address the medians under the freeway. And the next general meeting is November 10th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. And Diane Beacon will be presenting for the office of the district attorney. Okay.
Thanks, Peter. I try to attend these, but I've been having dental problems, so I was doing dentist stuff that day. Red Oak, Richmond Tennis. Gary, did we lose you?
No,
Thanks for
I
hanging
was
in
able.
there.
I was able to connect up. We actually are having a match against Oakland at Nickel Park while this is going on, and I've been connecting with them. And by the way, we just won the match. But so the good news is, the tennis stuff is about Point Richmond, but it's also about Richmond, and we really represent all of Richmond, as you know. But we play teams against Walnut Creek, Oakland, etc. But the cool thing is, nothing controversy here, is we have 8 teams playing right now, and 5 of those we're down to the last end of a season for the current teams in the USTA, and 5 of our teams are playing for the playoffs this weekend. So it's going to be a very full schedule up at Nickel Park. So that's all good. The other thing you'll enjoy is the youth programs now in Richmond have really picked up, and we now have after school at 2:30 to 6 o'clock every weekday. We have 25 kids or more out on the tennis courts being active, and they do have to leave their cell phones elsewhere, by the way. But that's all going good. We'd like to mention a couple things on our Hurlbut Benevolent Fund. We finished the corner across from the plunge, the Judge Carroll Park, and just comments. We're very, very happy how that's gone. But if you have comments you'd like to pass along to Phil or to me or Maren on any other changes, but we're very pleased how most of that all came out. The other thing that's more exciting, frankly, as you all know, nationally we got a real problem with SNAP being cut off, and we're in very bad shape. And it's just what's fortunate is Maren and I had applied to get a grant for food distribution. We've done this for like 3 years within Richmond, and it just happens that on Monday we're actually going to be able to get 3 $200 coupons as a result of a grant that we've received, that are going to go out to people in Richmond, which are single mothers, they're disabled people, and it's all about food. You can't get alcohol, okay? You can't get cigarettes. But it just happened. We didn't know about SNAP was not going to go away, but just as SNAP's going away, we're going to be able to get $200 coupons out to 300 people within Richmond that are actually the really needy people for food. So we're really excited about that, to say the least.
That's remarkable, Gary. And I know you've done it on your own with your own money, and we're grateful for that. That's incredible news. Gary, I want to just piggyback on what you said real quick. First of all, I have a question about the staff at the plunge, which, your foundation deals with the outside. I noticed that there's sometimes dumping there. There's always dumping there. Like somebody smashed a pumpkin on top of that mushroom thing. Like, is there a way for us to get the staff to walk the grounds? And they'll never clean it up because they're not part of the parks, that team. But can you help us to communicate with them? Or maybe that would have been a LaShonda question. They could at least be eyes and ears. If we can clean up something, why can't staff?
You need more than Maren and me, you mean?
Yeah.
We walk it, and so do you. Very good question. I've never approached them with that actually, and that would be good.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to shoot a letter out, an email out to LaShonda. I'll copy on it just to say, hey, maybe they won't take a broom because it's not in their job description. But I think if you're the manager of the plunge, I think walking the property could be part of the job. The other thing I'd like to say, and Gary may not know this because I spoke to Maren about it. The PRNC requested a Gateway Foundation grant this year to supplement with Maren's blessing that corner. The work that the city did was quick, and so you may have noticed that all the mulch is just falling on the sidewalk and the weed guard is insufficient. So we're hopeful that the Gateway Foundation will give us that grant, and we're just going to kind of polish up that corner a little bit, put boulders around the edge so the mulch doesn't blow around, and redo the weed guard. So and I'll be consulting with Maren to make sure that she likes that. It's not really improvement. It's just like a little polish of finishing on that corner. And then having something to honor Miss Maxine. some type of thing. And Caesar, like a little celebration, probably back to school time. Caesar can help us to get a city proclamation for Miss Maxine as like key to the city type of Maxine Finley Week for the crossing guard. So I just wanted to piggyback on what we were doing on that corner alongside you. Anybody from Red Oak Victory? I don't see Graham in this meeting. No? Okay. Women's West Side? I think they're on vacation this month.
No,
Aren't they?
Julie's here.
Oh, hi,
Oh,
Julie. Sorry.
Hi. That's okay. No,
Sometimes I can't find you on the screen. You're on
yeah,
a
and I forget to unmute. But anyway, I just wanted to mention three quick things. One is the Gather Gab Garden was a great success. Thank you so much for all the wonderful collaboration between the PNRC and the WWIC. We'd love to do that again maybe twice a year, but thank you again. That was great collaboration and a great turnout. Also, on next Tuesday is our November meeting, and it's our annual bingo fundraiser. We raise money to support the local charities. So our membership will be bringing guests. And lastly, we really enjoyed having you as our speaker this month, and you brought us up to speed about all the things that PNRC does and how many events they've had for the community. And some of us are members of both, but it was nice for you to showcase all the wonderful things that our organization does. So thank you again for your contribution to our meeting. And that is all.
It was great fun. I am the only male member of Women's West. Gender Schmender. Okay, and ping pong with Peter.
Well, I was away last week at a conference, hobbling around there in my injured foot. But this Monday we had I think we had 8 people, so it worked out pretty nicely. And if you've never been there, it's great fun. It's probably more of a social thing with a ping pong problem. It's located at the Point San Pablo Yacht Club on West Cutting from 5 to 8 or 9 o'clock every Monday. I encourage anybody who's interested. We have one member who's 89. We have several members in their mid to late 80s. I think I'm one of the younger players, actually. And so whether you just want to meet some new people, get out and do a little socializing, or if you actually are interested in playing some ping pong, these people are getting better despite
the alcohol.
Yeah, actually no, very, very little alcohol seems to, and usually that's toward the end, they'll ask me to pour them out.
I was joking, Peter.
Actually, you know what? The 89-year-old guy, every Monday after he's done playing, he asks for one of those little glasses of Guinness. He never had Guinness before, and since he started coming there, he loves it. So anyway.
All righty. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody want to speak about Rosie? I don't see Jim, but my screen is a little bit mixed up today. So no. Rosie going once, going twice. Charmaine has something important to discuss on LUDRC.
Right. So we had a land use design review committee meeting last night, and the subject was the Keller Beach sewer. This is a new project, and I want to give you a little bit of background. This is a kind of older sewer line, serves about 300 homes. It's on the backside of the hill facing the water. It needs to be probably rebuilt to sustain all the homes for the future. They're not using that word rebuilt, by the way, that was my word, but I'm not sure if they can fix what's there. There was a prior company that the city hired to do some research and survey and come to some kind of conclusion. And the problem with this was a while back, and as you've all heard, there was different personnel in Public Works, and none of the people who lived on this hillside were consulted. So it became a big issue, and they're still very concerned about their sewer line being old, and they actually had some problems with it. So I'm not going to go any more into the background, but I want to tell you hope for the future. So what has happened now is the city is starting a new project, and it is by Kearns and West and BKF Engineering. The project manager is named Adam Brown, and he's working with Nick Saffold from Kearns and West. We had a meeting last night to just kind of set expectations. It was a pretty short meeting, not too technical. They really wanted to come in and let the community know that they're listening and that they have plans in the future to always involve the community in further discussion. So we had about 14 neighbors on that Zoom call last night, along with several LUDRC members, and also Richmond City, Hillel Hamden was there. So it was a good packed meeting. And Nick Saffold shared a series of slides to let us know to kind of set expectations, as I said before. So they want to ensure transparency. They want to build trust with the community and support a community with informed processes and outcomes. They are planning to gather information. There's a lot of surveys, etc., and have neighborhood and community meetings and community education and information sharing. So that's their intention. Now, Adam Brown spoke about the engineering firm he works for is BKF Engineering. It's been in business 110 years, and they're going to look for interim solutions and final outcomes. So they're collaborating with the city, with Kearns and West, and with the community. They're going to be reviewing all the previous information and previous surveys from the former company. They have the documents. They're going to have 3 interim alternatives and 3 final alternatives, and then they will prioritize. They won't jump to conclusions. They're doing extensive research and meetings with the public. They will be doing a geotechnical review and other kinds of field investigations. And they're also looking at environmental regulations and permits. So the deliverables are basically 2 things: a technical summary of alternatives for interim solutions and recommendations for the final solutions. The first technical meeting will be Monday, November 17th, 1:30 to 3 at the Point Richmond Community Center. If somebody's available to write that in the chat, I would appreciate it. Monday, November 17th, 1:30 to 3 in the Point Richmond Community Center. Now, this is a technical meeting. It will be a roundtable discussion with questions and answers. People can bring new information. They can suggest things. It's pretty open, but it will be very technical. And then the city will, not the city, the next meeting will be maybe December, but they're planning something they're calling a workshop. But they don't have a date or time for that. But that workshop will be more for the general public. That won't be talking about all of the, I don't know, piping kind of terminology. But they will give an overview of where they are so far. And again, Q&A with the public. The city has a new project webpage, and current information and updates on progress will be posted there. It's kind of like what you saw with Robert, how to get to it. But you can put in, go to City of Richmond, you can put in search criteria, Keller Beach, and you'll probably get something. It's called Keller Beach Sanitary Sewer Assess. I'm going to write that in the chat when I'm done speaking with you. Also, they have created a new email address. And again, it's Keller Beach in the how you address the email. So I will also write that in the chat for you. Then we had that was basically the meeting, just setting expectations of what is going to happen. A couple of questions came up from the community. One was they wanted to have a copy of the contract that the city has signed. And Hillel Hamden from the city said, yes, you just submit a request for it. And Adam Brown said, yes, he would reach out to the city. A few other questions had to do with the general feeling is kind of similar to what happened. Oh, I love your cat, Lisa. She's beautiful. What happened with Cutting Boulevard is that a lot of things were done without the community knowing. And that's what happened with this sewer project, the previous old one. And a couple of issues came up about that is that the public is not trusting the new people just because of the way we were treated by the former people. But they assured us they're going to be in touch with the community and that this is a new project now. Let's see what else. A little back and forth about how much is it going to cost and things like that. That's going to be part of the presentation is once they come up with some solutions, they're going to have to figure out the costs. Let's see what else. There wasn't a lot of detail in the Q&A because it was a high-level meeting, just kind of telling us what to expect. So they did talk a little bit about Veolia, and Hillel says that's a separate issue because that's the management of the sewer system. So they're not really including Veolia in this yet. People want papers. They want to know, what's being written, that kind of thing. It will be available for the community. They want to know about emergency response plans, just like bike lanes. They want to know what to do if there's an earthquake and the sewer system doesn't manage to make it. So people are concerned. They're trying to get the information as soon as possible because people are concerned that this sewer system is not going to hold. And maybe tomorrow is the day it breaks. So they don't know. So it's kind of a thing where we were all relieved to hear that they have plans in place. They're already starting some of the surveys. They're in the middle of an aerial survey. They're also getting shoreline mapped, things like that. And we know their names, we know their companies, maybe it's going to work this time. That's the hope. So I think we left it on a hopeful place, but the residents on that hillside are still concerned. So it's one of those things that we have to say, time will tell. Let's see what happens at the November 17th meeting. Now, if anybody has any questions, I don't know what I can answer because we did not talk about technical things, just a
Right.
general plan.
Charmaine, I just want to ask, you've done this forever. Did you feel satisfied with the flow of what they are saying? Because Kearns and West is doing the outreach, and they're, doing the same job that CSW will be doing for the bikes. Did you like the way they proposed that this outreach was going to unfold? Did you feel comfortable with it?
I felt that they were very organized. Their presentation made a lot of sense from a professional viewpoint. They seemed like they understood their role and what needs to happen. And they assured the public that they will be included.
Thanks,
So
Charmaine.
I felt hopeful after the meeting.
Thank you. There's a lot of talking, and you just saw me do a lot of it in this really long meeting. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to yes. And so there's a lot sometimes to build on how that we can all get to yes together. Charmaine, thanks. As usual, a really accurate report. Let's move on to CERT. Anything for CERT?
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting lately, so I'll pass on that.
Okay, and anybody from history? Bonnie Joe's not here, I see, but maybe James, is there anything you want to comment on?
No, I think I've said it all in the comments.
Okay.
Nothing personal to anybody.
Okay, thanks. You're abrupt, James, but you know what's going on around here. Arts at Point Richmond, Miss Sullivan. You're muted, my dear.
Well, a couple things happened recently is we had a walk around town to celebrate Cannoli Oliveri, who is the one who is behind all of the posters that are all around town and also used to be at the school. And we're just going to be asking for more posters, so that project will keep happening. But he did pass away, and in the process of him passing away, I'll just say a couple things about him. He was one of the people that started a free bakery in Oakland. He lived on a commune, and he was part of the Jelly Roll press. I don't know if you know those guys, but they go way back into the 60s, and they were, rock and roll people. So anyway, that was fun. Arts Point Richmond is doing really well. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great series of events that Arts at Point Richmond coordinated as part of this Neighbor to Neighbor grant, and it was wildly successful. Kate had to disappear because it's meeting too long. My fault. Graham, I just want to point out, Layla Dima told me I need to find this. I don't know if it's a text that there will be a Halloween party at Cram. Where's this flyer? I don't know. In the afternoon. Anybody have little kids here? Good. I'm off the hook. Okay. And anything from HOAs? Anybody? Lisa, Charmaine? No? No? Nothing exciting there. Anybody want to introduce themselves or their business? No. We've gone later than this. It's not a huge success on timing, but it's not the worst. In remembrance, obviously, Cannoli Oleani, who was a real artist and renegade in the community. Anybody else have any remembrances or celebrations? I've got one I meant to mention a couple months ago, but I keep forgetting. I'd like to celebrate the very successful publishing of Peter Taylin's book, which is, hang on, I even have it written down, a technical manual, and it certainly sounds sexy, the title, which is a master optician's guide to hand grinding and polishing. So Peter makes very highly sophisticated things out of crystal and glass, like lenses for Lawrence Livermore. Congratulations, Peter. My understanding is that within the hand polishing and grinding world, your book is a huge success and you are considered a master. So congratulations on that. You deserve a little round of applause.
I want to put this in perspective. I got to the conference this week or last week, and I met with the publisher there, SPIE Publishing, and he was very enthusiastic. He said, "My God, Peter, your book is a smash success. It's only been out 6 months and it's already in the second printing." And Sue goes, "Wow, that's incredible. How many books has he sold?" And he said, "Over 200." Because they only published 200 at a printing, so I think they sold 300. Now they brought about 30 of them to the conference for the rack, and those sold out the first day. Of course, it was a captive audience, but I did sign a bunch of books, and within a very small community, I am a celebrity, but it's like I said, it's a very narrow community, so you won't be seeing it on the New York Times bestseller list. And
Look out, J.K. Rowling. Folks, thanks for bearing with me. We did lose a lot as I anticipated, but this was a long meeting. I think it's important. The next time we will meet will be our combined November and December meeting on Wednesday, December 3rd. You will get lots of information. It is a hybrid meeting. We're going to start on Zoom at home, and then we're all going to go to the ballroom for a celebration and just to go back to the old days when we just had something to eat and drink and some music. And we will, bike lanes will not be allowed to be discussed in that meeting. Nothing to do with sewer will be allowed to be discussed. Nothing to do with odors will allow to be discussed. It's just going to be what we've done and accomplished, who we've touched, who we've reached, and what we plan to do with the community next year. So I'm grateful for those of you who hung in for the long haul. I wish you a happy and safe Halloween. We hope to see you on Friday to wave and cheer the kids on. I think that a few of us are dressed appropriately. The kids really need our support, and it's adorable. So we'll see you on 10 o'clock or just before 10 o'clock on Friday morning, and then again at Christmas time. Nice classes, Peter. Thank you all. Thanks for hanging in there.
bye.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:42 p.m.